The holidays are here, and if you're like me, your crochet hook is working feverishly to finish up all of those last minute projects, whether those are gifts or garments that you want to wear for the holidays. But in addition to that, you're trying to balance out all of your gift shopping and decorating and parties galore. How do you find time to crochet and stay sane at the same time? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. A lot of us really get stuck in this idea of what the holiday season is supposed to look like. And we end up burning ourselves out because we're so busy making handmade gifts and garments for ourselves and doing all of the holiday shopping, sometimes all of the holiday baking, some of the entertaining. If you're not entertaining, you're going to different parties and events, so this is really a crazy time of year. And if you're like me, crochet is your therapy. It is that activity for me that I can just pick up and know that it calms my brain and brings me peace. But if I am struggling because I don't have any time to do that, it's going to have an effect on me. So not only am I more stressed out because I'm doing all of these other things, I don't have the outlet that usually brings me the calm and peace that I need. So it's kind of a double-edged double whammy. That's what it is. So I like to be able to carve out sometimes some niches here and there that I know that I am going to be able to just really isolate and focus on the things that I do. Now, I do have to say, in transparency, I don't lead as busy a life as I know many of you do. A lot of you are going to have children and jobs and additional challenges that at this phase in my life I don't necessarily have. I get to decide how many hours I work. I get to decide things like that. And my children are grown. My son is lives in another state, so I don't have that additional, I don't want to call it a burden because I wish that I had that opportunity to spend more time with my children. He's raised, I don't get to see my granddaughter very often. So there's not as much of that kind of thing that taxes me and my schedule. But I know that there have been phases in my life when that wasn't the case. And I did have to find balance. And I did have to look very, very hard. And that balance is actually what brought me to becoming a productivity coach in the first place when I was doing that full time, was this need to be able to have time for me while still being able to focus on the other things in my life that mattered. And I came to the conclusion that I hate the term balance because balance indicates that there is an equal amount of everything so that it balances out. And we rarely have balance. We rarely have a time in our lives where we can dedicate just as much time to ourselves as we do to our family, as we do to our careers, and that kind of thing. I prefer to use the term harmony. And I like harmony because if you think about an orchestra, and I'm definitely not a music person, but I love this analogy anyway. If you think about an orchestra, orchestras have many different instruments that play, and they don't all get the same number of notes. They don't all get to play equally as loud with just as much. I mean, it would be cacophony. I think that's the right word. It would be very, very loud if every instrument played equally the same amount all the time. It would be nothing but chaos, and that doesn't create harmony. Instead, each instrument plays for a certain amount of time, a certain amount of notes at various points. They might, get to have a little bit of the spotlight, and then they take a step back while another instrument takes the spotlight. And so it's this nice flow of allowing one instrument the highlight while another takes a step back, or maybe a couple of things are focused and featured while others are quiet and silent. And that's the way that I look at the opportunity to live our lives. If we look at each of the roles that we have in our lives as the instruments in that orchestra or that symphony, and we realize that there are going to be times when our career isn't going to matter as much as our family. And there are going to be other times where our family doesn't need as much attention as our own sort of self help. And when we can look at that and embrace the idea that maybe there are seasons for our different roles, then it gives us a little bit of a different mindset. We don't feel like we have to be all things to all people all the time. And that's where we end up getting ourselves into trouble. And I say we because I've been there, I've done that. Uh, in fact, I wrote the book. So it's definitely something that I I can walk that walk and I can talk that talk because I have walked the walk and I have talked the talk. So I totally understand that need and that desire to try and be the best homemaker and the best mother and the best wife and the best business person, whether it's your career or a job or your business, whatever the case may be. I get the idea that we want to be the best at everything. And the realization is we don't have to be, and we shouldn't expect ourselves to be. Oprah Winfrey doesn't do everything herself. In fact, she doesn't have children, so therefore we can kind of take that mother piece off the table, which allows her to focus a lot more on her business and her career. She doesn't have a spouse, which allows her to take more time and attention to focus on her business and her career. Now, I know she has somebody very close, and they've been very close for a very long time, but uh and maybe he plays the role of a spouse, but it's there are definitely things that she does not have that you have in your life. And so you cannot compare yourself to somebody else because your situations are not the same. And when I was finally able to realize that I don't have to be perfect at everything, especially all at once, I let a lot of that pressure off.
You're perfect in every way.
So, right now, if your idea of the holiday season is to make handmade gifts, maybe you opt to scale back on some of the store bought gifts or on some of the baked goods, or maybe you don't decorate your house quite so much. I know one year after my son had moved out, I wasn't going to be entertaining, I didn't have anybody coming over. And so I looked at the idea of setting up and tearing down the Christmas decorations. And for me, that takes about a day and a half on the front end of setting everything up, and at least a day on the back end of tearing everything down. And I was so busy with everything else that I just decided that no matter how much I love to have my home decorated for the holidays, and am I mean, I'm not one of those kind of people that has two or three or five different Christmas trees, but I do have much more than just a Christmas tree. I have a Christmas village, and I have different things here and there throughout. So there's little touches all around my home with Christmas decor. And I really enjoy my house being decorated that way. Whether it's for me and me alone, I love that. But there are going to be certain seasons, certain years that I choose not to bring all of the decor out. Or maybe I just do everything but the Christmas tree. or maybe I just do the Christmas tree. It doesn't really matter as long as I'm making that conscious choice to say, this is what I'm going to do this year. And I'm doing it for me, not for anybody else whatsoever. So that's really an important conscious decision that you can make. If you are struggling because you're overwhelmed right now, make those conscious decisions about what you're going to keep and what you're going to let go. And if letting go of crochet is the thing that you want to let go of, let yourself off the hook. Can you kind of see where this whole concept came from? Is I decided to let myself off the hook in so many areas of my life. And this is just one of those things that I add to it. If making those handmade gifts is going to just be too much for you and you don't want to do it, it's okay. Let yourself off the hook and forgive yourself. There's really nothing even to forgive. I mean, it's not a forgive yourself kind of scenario because you're not doing anything wrong, so therefore there's nothing to forgive. Allow yourself that opportunity and that space to say, it's okay if I don't do that this year. Maybe I'll do it next year when I have more time and attention, but this year I'm just feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Now, that doesn't mean you have to give up crochet. Certainly, you can continue, but if you don't have the pressure of completing things, then it feels like it's less of a task, less of a chore, and more therapy for you. So it may be that you just simply decide to give up the handmade gifts or the garment that you really wanted to have ready to wear for the holidays, and instead you're just going at a pace that feels comfortable for you. Now, if crocheting really is your therapy time and it is something that's really important for you to not give up while you are in this busy holiday season, then there are definitely some things that you can do to make sure that you're keeping that around. Here's the thing, it's okay whether you are just doing it for you or whether you are working on handmade gifts that you would like to give. The first thing you want to do is really prioritize and figure out what else are you going to give up to give that space to the crochet. We do not, we're very limited in how much time we have every day, 24 hours in a day. We need a certain amount of that to sleep. We need a certain amount of that for, personal hygiene and bathroom responsibilities and eating and things like that. Obviously, if you work a job or you have a family that you need to take care of, that's going to take up some of that time as well. So, what you have left is extremely limited. And whether that's a couple of hours or, 8 or 9 hours, it's up to you to prioritize that and figure out, what am I going to use that time for? Now, here's the value in this activity. When you consciously look at how you're spending your time, you're going to make sure that you're getting the most out of that time. We tend to lose track of time when we just sort of go through the motions and do whatever comes next without really paying attention to it. And then we get to the end of the week or the end of the month and we're like, where did the time go? It's because you're not being conscious and present with how that time is being spent. So, if you look at your schedule and say, I have an additional, let's say, 8 hours every week, and that 8 hours is supposed to cover my gift shopping and my decorating and my cooking and baking and my crochet time, how do you want to divide that up? How do you want to prioritize it? Maybe you commit to doing 15 or 20 minutes of crochet a day, and that's it. That's all you're going to allow yourself. That's, maybe an hour and a half a week. And if that's all you have and that's what you can commit to it and that's what you're okay with, then there is nothing wrong with that as long as you know that you're doing it consciously. And if you choose to look at that and say, I don't know that I have time for crochet right now, so I'm not going to prioritize that. Again, you're making a conscious decision to do that, and so therefore, it's okay. you got to let yourself off the hook. And when you can do that with a clear mind, you let go of the guilt because you chose this. And being able to choose those things frees us from that guilt that, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get time to crochet. I'm never going to get time to bake. I'm never look, we can't do it all. So what do you want to do and what don't you want to do? That's really what it comes down to. So figure out how much time you have each week and how much of that you actually want to commit to crochet. And uh, schedule it, make an appointment with yourself. We have this habit that if we have meetings or appointments on our calendar, we honor those and we respect those and we show up. And oh my gosh, if you miss a doctor's appointment, they're going to charge you a no-show fee. Maybe we need to start charging ourselves no-show fees for not showing up for ourselves. And so if you schedule 15 minutes every evening before you go to bed, then what is it going to cost you if you don't meet that? Now, obviously, if there are good reasons, a child gets sick or something like that, but it has to be a conscious decision for you to say, I'm not going to do this. And here's why. Nothing is hard and fast, nothing's in stone, but it gives us that wiggle room and it gives us the commitment to say, this really is important to me. This really is a priority in my life, and I'm going to make it happen.
No matter what, no matter where.
Now, another tip that I have for this, when I was teaching productivity, there's a common thing that's very well known in productivity circles that says that multitasking actually decreases our efficiency, and it is better to focus on that one task than it is to try and switch tasks back and forth. I will argue all day long that that is an accurate statement. However, I also believe that there's something called multi-purposing. And that means that we can take a single activity and get multiple purposes out of it. So, for example, with crochet, we might be able to knock out gift giving along with getting some crochet therapy time. We might be able to get knock out community and quality time. I go to a knitting and crochet group once a week, and that's quality time that I am spending with my mother in law and the gals that I get to hang out with. So while we are doing our projects, working on our projects, we are also spending quality time together. Maybe that quality time for you is working with a child or a grandparent and getting to do that while you're spending time with them. And you would be spending time with them anyway, but this allows you to work on your project at the same time. So that's what multi-purposing your time is, getting multiple purposes out of the same thing that you're doing. And I think that that's a really valuable skill to have when we can focus on acknowledging that there are multiple gains from one thing. I also would challenge you to expand that into other areas of your life. Because if you can look at things like driving your kids to school as quality time spent with them, then there's not nearly as much pressure to spend quality time with them when they are busy with their activities or after school homework and you're trying to get the house cleaned or dinner cooked, those kind of things. And at the end of the day, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't spend any time with my kids today because we're just going, going, going. Well, how are you driving with them? Are you, zoned out listening to the radio and ignoring what they're doing while they're on their phones or, playing the video games in the back seat? Turn those off and have conversations in the car or play games with them while they're in the car. Obviously, games that you can play while you're driving, But the point is that this is valuable time, and while it is accomplishing something, which is getting you from point A to point B, it doesn't mean that it can't be. We don't have to look at everything as having one sole purpose and one purpose alone. That puts too much pressure on us. And there are so many things that we could be doing that we can gain multiple benefits out of that one activity. So start looking around for that and figuring out, how can I get multiple benefits out of this one particular thing?
Oh, I benefit in many ways.
Now, another tip that I have and I want to share is to really recruit those around us. This is something that if you've been in productivity circles or self help or self care circles for very long, you've probably heard, and it bears repeating again. Don't be afraid to ask for help. It is completely acceptable to ask your spouse to do some of the holiday shopping. It is completely acceptable to ask your family to bring a side dish for the Christmas dinner. So, as you're going through all of the extra tasks and chores that are assigned to you for this holiday season, which ones can you delegate and take off of your plate and have somebody else help you? Now, I'm going to caution you. The tendency is to think that nobody can do it as good as you can, and therefore you'll just do it yourself. You're probably right. Nobody can do it as good as you do. But done is better than perfect. So if we allow our children to load the dishwasher, it might not be as efficiently loaded as you would load it, but it's done. And it can check that task off the list. So let go of perfect during the season. Let yourself off the hook from having to have all of the things done the way that you normally do them. And this actually is a great tip for all year long. You don't have to save this one for the holiday season, but getting others to help you out and realizing that they're not going to do it the same way you did it, and that's okay, is going to be a really powerful way to release some of the stress and anxiety and pressure that you have. So maybe you do have some time to work on a little bit of crochet here and there because you're not overwhelmed with all of the other things. Nobody's gonna, I shouldn't say nobody. Nobody worth a grain of salt is going to bat an eye if you take some time at the end of the day to sit down and work on a crochet project that feels right for you. If somebody's giving you a hard time with that, we need to have a deeper conversation because that might not be a good person for you to have in your life.
Let me at him! Oh, rock him! Oh, suck him!
The fact is that we all should be allowed to have me time. Now, it shouldn't be abused. We shouldn't be selfish and do nothing for anyone else, but it certainly is important to take some time now and then on a very consistent routine basis, whether that's daily or every few days, and really just give yourself that opportunity to have your therapeutic break. And it could be crochet, it could be reading, it could be taking a hot bath. Could you crochet in a hot bath? That might be an interesting one to try. You can read, but I'm not sure you can really crochet that. Get some waterproof yarn, I suppose. Maybe that would work. And this might be the season that instead of trying to complete that temperature Afghan that you started back in January, instead you're going to focus on small projects, small wins, maybe some Christmas decorations or, a hat for the holidays and the cold weather. Something that you can knock out in a short period of time instead of feeling like this is a really time consuming project for you and you absolutely have to get it done. Look at those projects that are short and quick and easy and are going to make you feel like you are successful. It's probably not the best time of year to challenge yourself with some new lessons or new skills or new stitches, but it might be the ideal time of year to work on those favorite projects that you know you can whip out really quick.
I did it! I did it! I did it! I did it!
So, if you're like me, crochet is an important piece of my life at this juncture. And if I had to not do it so that I could focus on other people and other activities and other things, there's a really good chance that I could get pretty resentful and pretty frustrated and depressed and full of anxiety. And that's definitely not going to make anybody happy. So I will absolutely make sure to prioritize a little bit of crochet in my life, no matter what else is going on in my world, no matter how busy I get with other things. And it's all about being conscious and making those decisions. And I would love to hear from you what kind of tips that you have around prioritizing crochet in your life when things get really crazy and hectic and busy. And, is this something that this time of year is still really important to you to focus on? Do you make that a priority, or is it something that during the holidays when you really are very busy, crochet takes a little bit of a backseat? There's no wrong answer. This is supposed to be something that we enjoy doing and not something that we're forced to do or not do. So it's all about what works for you. If you like these kind of little life lessons packed around crochet, leave a comment below, share a like, share the video with others that you know might enjoy it as well, and subscribe if you're not already so that you always have great content to watch while you're working on your next crochet project. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.